Holy shamoly, I just done something I shouldn't have done. Okay, hey,
No,
yeah.
hey, you're back. You got a little lighting, and
I'm
look, we have
I'm
blue and Louisiana watch around us. Look at this.
man, I haven't seen that in so long. I mean, I thought this was Bossier Watch.
Well, it's kind of that whole identity crisis thing we've had going on. We haven't actually done a Louisiana watch in, I don't know, nearly a month now, not an official one. So I figured, what the heck? We'll do Louisiana watch tonight and have the cool red and blue colors. Red, white, and blue. We'll be patriotic.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. Well, we are trying to do a public service here and help our brethren over there on the other side of the river and help to inform them a little more about some decisions they got to make down the road. And we have a guest from over there
Yes,
going
we
to talk
do.
about it a little bit.
Yeah, kind of an important event coming up in Shreveport in the next few months. And look, for those of you that don't realize or remember, part of Shreveport is actually in Bossier Parish. Not much, but a couple of little slivers.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few precincts that are in Bossier, and somebody just stopped by my office yesterday and was actually going over those stats and the number of precincts. And I was actually surprised at the number of precincts there were.
Yeah, so, it's a little relevant to Bossier's side of stuff as well. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll do our countdown here in just a second. Folks, for those of you, we've already got about 13, 14 people joining. That's honestly not bad for a Thursday that we hadn't been doing them consistently. But if y'all will go ahead and tag some friends, text some friends, all that sort of thing, let them know that we are live and we are here. Mike Cummings Jr. is in, and he's asking about what happened earlier in Bossier. We'll even talk about some of that. But anyway, tag some friends, text some friends, let them know we are live. We do have a guest, Jim Taliaferro. He is running for mayor of Shreveport, and so we're going to pepper him with a few questions. We'll be back in about 2.5 minutes. Grab your glass of iced tea or whatever you like to drink, some popcorn, and join us after the countdown. This live broadcast is brought to you by Eagle Truck Center, soaring to new heights. The Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 23 years in the mortgage business. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. It's climbing, and looks like Miss Janet there is tagging people fast and furiously. Good job. Thank you, Miss Taliaferro.
I am thinking that our guest might know that person.
The name looks. Yeah. Well, speaking of guest, shall we just launch right into it and bring our guest in?
Let's jump right into it, right out of the gate. Let's not even wait.
All right, I agree. Let me see if I can make it all happen technically. Hello there, Mr. Jim. How are you?
Gentlemen, thank you for having me. It's a privilege. Thank you so much.
All right, glad to have you.
Rick, so look, I was like, you know what? Hey, Jim is running for mayor, and we need to get him on the show because believe it or not, while we are primarily Bossier-based guys, what happens in Shreveport or what happens in Caddo, it affects Bossier. And there are people that live in Bossier, like we were just saying, that they vote Shreveport, they vote in Caddo. So,
right.
Absolutely.
Well, and of course, the other side of that is, Shreveport is just across the river, so what happens in Shreveport does have an effect on Bossier. I mean, I hate to pick on Shreveport right out of the gate, but look at the population growth of Bossier, which arguably some of that's coming from the population decrease in Shreveport. So what happens over there certainly affects, this side of the river as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not that far, obviously, one river, and but we have a lot of the same issues because we are cities, and cities do have issues, whether you're a big city, whether you're a small city. We all have issues with crime, and we all have issues with cleanliness. We all have issues with those things that are quality of life issues. So, I always say, with, Caddo goes, Shreveport goes, Bossier goes, and no city, no village, no town can sustain itself on its own for very long because we all are interdependent on our resources and our economy. I mean, we cross the river frequently to do, our trading. And so we definitely have a vested interest in the political landscape of both sides of the river.
Well, I've got a couple of questions and topics in mind, Duke. I don't know what you got in mind, and we didn't really plan how we were going to do the, questions. So you got something you want to lead off? You want me to?
Well, I think before we kind of start putting the beat downs on him with questions and solving all the world's problems, I think folks ought to, there may be some people that don't know Jim and know who he is, what his background is, and I know him, and I know him as someone who has been around public service for a lot of years. I mean, I think I might have first met Jim 12 to 13 years ago, and
Sure,
but
right.
Jim, you started off an Air Force guy, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I was an Air Force brat. I'm 69 years old, so I graduated in high school in 1970. My dad was a career Air Force guy. Retired after 23 years of service. We retired in Phoenix, Arizona, where I went to high school. I was an Air Force brat. Like I said, I went to 3 different high schools in 4 years. We moved every 3 years. So I was on the road with Dad. And, he retired, moved back here to Shreveport, and was the chief engineer for Brentwood for about 15 years until he passed away in 1990. So I joined the military myself. I joined the Navy, and I was just tired of Air Force life. So my dad understood, so I joined the United States Navy in 1971. Went to Southeast Asia on 3 different tours. Just pretty much wrapped up the Vietnam War, between 71 and 73. Just had a great military career, but I got tired of going out to sea, so I was looking for something different. And quite honestly, gentlemen, I saw an advertisement on TV when I was in San Diego, and it said the San Diego Police Department was looking for people to be police officers, and the naive me says, well, that sounds like fun. So I launched a career in law enforcement and stayed with the San Diego Police Department for about 12 years. And I still maintain my Navy service. I was in the reserves and ran a PT boat out of Coronado Island there, right off of San Diego. And I got to tell you, literally one day I woke up in 1987. I says, it's just time to go home. My family was here. My grandparents were here. My grandparents were the ones that started my legacy here in Shreveport, buying one of the first houses in Bossier in 1937 for $7,500. And
Wow.
my grandfather worked for United Gas. My grandmother worked for was a retail gal, working for Lerner's, Pally Royal, some of the major chain stores back then. And so, I moved back here in 1987, but unfortunately, I moved back at a time when there was no oil. Oil was not king any longer. So I couldn't get a job in law enforcement. And so I did sales for about 3 years, and I realized during my selling career of 3 years before I joined the Shreveport Police Department in 1990, I realized in those 3 years that I would never be without a job because I knew that if I believed in a product and I believed in people and I had good people skills, then I could do anything I wanted to do. But law enforcement was in my blood, so I joined this Shreveport Police Department in 1990 and stayed with them until 2014 when I retired. I had about 25 years of service. At the same time, in 1990, I wanted to continue my military service, and so I rejoined the Air Force and was a traditional reservist until 2012 when I retired with 34 years of service there. So, it was a great ride. I did everything in the police department, from patrol to investigations to academy training to the public information officer for quite a while. I ran the Crime Stoppers program for about 13 years, and I just loved serving. So really, service has been a part of my life. It's all I've really ever known. So here I am, being the Caddo Parish Commissioner, extending my desire to serve. And this is my first term, so I've been probably 2.5 years, 3 years into it now, and I do love serving. But
Yes.
3.5 years
Look,
ago, I decided that I wasn't happy with the way the trajectory of Shreveport, because I do love my city as you love Bossier. I love my city, and I just saw us being stagnant. That we weren't progressing. We weren't being catapulted to our rightful place, and we know what success looks like. And so anyway, so I ran for mayor the last time, unsuccessful, but a very successful race in our eyes, coming within 2,000 votes of defeating the incumbent Ollie Tyler. So, as life goes on, I went back to real estate. I'm in real estate now with Remax Executive Realty over here on Uri Drive. So that's a little bit of me in a nutshell. Again, why am I running again? Because I don't believe we've progressed again. And we have so much to offer. We have so many resources that other cities only wish they had. I think it's just a matter of leadership. And so that's the reason I'm throwing my hat into the ring again, because I do love my city and I wanted her to be the best that she could possibly be. So thank you for allowing me to kind of give that little short bio to your listeners.
Well, we got to go. We've already got a question in the comments, and apparently this is a pretty important one, so I'll see if I can get it up here on the screen. And we promise not to do too many gotcha questions. But
Oh, that's
Greg,
all right. I
Greg
love the
Bell,
gotcha questions because I get to learn.
this is super important. Greg Bell says, "Wait, what high school in Arizona did Jim go to?"
Cortez.
So there
I
you
just
go,
had that.
Greg.
I just found somebody. I was at a meeting, an animal rescue fundraiser last night, and it's amazing how things just come up. At Cortez High School, I went to my junior and senior year at Cortez and climbed Camelback Mountain. And when I went to high school, though, it was all desert just about. So now, obviously, Phoenix is just huge.
Yeah,
Thanks for
so
asking.
yeah,
Yeah.
Greg says he went to Alhambra. I guess I said that halfway correctly, maybe. But anyway, so all right. So and the way that this is going to work for everybody watching, we're up to about 26 people watching now. So the way this is going to work is if you have some questions for Jim or for us, just ask them in the comments. That doesn't mean we can get to everyone, but Duke and I both try to monitor the comments, and we'll pick certain comments and put them on the screen and address it. Now, I want to pause for a second because this was mentioned before. I think we went to the countdown. Where is it? Mike Cummings Jr. asked a topic about Bossier, so we'll address that, Jim, and then we'll move on.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He says, "What happened earlier in Bossier standoff with police? Was that the bomb threat in Benton,
I think
or
that
was there
was
something else?"
probably, yeah, unless there's been something else happen, but I think that might have been what he was referencing was the bomb threat at, or, at Benton High
Whatever.
School or
Right.
Benton Middle. I really don't know which, but I think it's resolved, has been for quite some time, and I don't know that they actually found anything or not, but
Yeah.
um, it's been
Yeah.
resolved.
Okay.
So, Jim, you left out a couple of things on your bio. Now,
Oh my gosh.
correct correct me if I'm wrong. Well, it goes into this because this is going to be part of the debate. I mean, it's raging on now over
Yeah,
in Shreveport. Um, so, aren't you on the Republican State Central Committee or the Caddo Parish Executive Committee?
I'm on the PEC. That's correct.
You're on the PEG. Okay, I knew it was one, but I couldn't remember
Yes, sir.
which.
You bet.
So, from an outsider, and of course you know me from Republican politics. I
Sure.
mean, is the elections now in Shreveport, or is it a party politics, or is it something else, or what is your thoughts on it?
I think a lot of people, more people than well, let me put it this way. The people that I speak with, um, both left, right, Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't really matter. People have come to the realization that politics often gets in the way of progress. And I think we are seeing a shift in people are looking for someone that is a good leader, not necessarily has the right letter after them. And I always say that it's leadership and not a letter. I am a Republican, but I'm more conservative than anything else. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in free market. I believe in human dignity. I mean, I can go on and on and on, which are interesting enough. If you ask people on the left, or you ask people in the Democratic Party or independents, there is very little that we disagree on as far as the fundamentals of what makes us thrive as a nation. And so, yes, I'm a member of the Republican Party, but I think people are more apt to look at the person. It kind of like the Martin Luther King, look at the character. And so I'm hoping people look at that and kind of look at what I bring to the table in the leadership capacity. Obviously, leadership is all I've known in Shreveport. This is my home, and I really want us to be the best that we could possibly be. So yeah, I see the trend, especially this year. I think where there's a lot of people in the Democratic Party that are not happy with the way that is going. I think that a lot of people are not, I won't say waking up, but they're realizing, that we have more in common than we have in difference. So I'm hoping that people will kind of look at what I bring to the table as far as a leadership or a leadership capacity. My track record, again, I'm a public servant. I love serving military, law enforcement, and now with the Cattle Parish Commission. So, yeah, I think there's a definite shift.
Hmm. Well, let me kind of segue off of that, and this is a question that I ask every candidate. I don't care what office it is.
Yeah.
So, of course, a lot of Republicans say they're conservative, and really, honestly, a lot of them that claim to be conservatives aren't necessarily, and they have a tough time defining it.
Correct.
So, my litmus test for everybody, again, no matter the office, is the Second Amendment. So where do you stand? And I know it doesn't really follow under the mayor's purview, but let me go back down memory lane for a second. In the infamous Cedric Glover and Your Rights Are Suspended deal about 10 years ago, actually a blog I had, I covered that initially. Anyway, where do you stand on open carry as well as constitutional carry?
We've always had open carry.
Right.
The constitutional carry is something. It's not a new concept. It is a new term, or not. I wouldn't even say it's a new term. It is a term that is not familiar to a lot of people. Constitutionally, you can protect yourself. You can protect your home under the Second Amendment. as a law enforcement officer, even in the early days in San Diego when I was patrolling, you have open carry, and it's going to get your attention, even though it is your right to do so. Back then, it really got our attention because typically people don't, have a gun strapped on their hip, walking in public, unless they are in a high a security issue. In other words, I'm a store owner, I transport money, work behind a desk in a convenience store, something like that. Those were the usually the only time that we saw open carry. Now I see more open carry than I have ever seen before. Even when patrolling the streets of Shreveport, we did see open carry. I see a lot more now as a civilian. People are less, I think, less inhibited on concealing it. The concealing aspect of it, I conceal all the time. I'm always packing. One, two, whatever it is, I'm always armed. And that if you're concealed and you do it right, nobody knows the wiser. So I'm not sure if I answer your question or not, but obviously the constitutional carry, I was concerned about the lack of training, that someone would not participate in, for the constitutional carry or the concealed and so forth. But then I realized is that, well, what's the difference if I conceal my weapon and don't get training, or if I open carry and don't get training?
Well,
So you
true,
can't have
and
one without the other. I mean, I think you can't pigeonhole one and not pigeonhole the other, or vice versa. I'm not sure I said that correctly, but it is your constitutional right to carry a firearm, protect yourself and protect your family and protect your property.
yeah, well, and that's great answer, and I think we pretty much agree on it. I'd like to remind everybody, a lot of folks don't know because you mentioned, your time in law enforcement in San Diego, that it was actually Ronald Reagan, of all people, who, as governor, of course, he was still a Democrat
He was a
back
Democrat.
then.
Yeah, that's right.
He is the one that instituted the Second Amendment restrictions in California because the Black Panthers were open carrying, and they had to do
Yeah,
something to, even though they weren't being violent with it. Oh my goodness, the lawmakers had to do something, and literally Ronald Reagan is the one. And this is 2 shows now I picked on Reagan, which is, why Republican friends will probably disown me now. But he is the one that started that trend in California, so we can all thank him for that. And
yeah,
interestingly,
interesting. Go ahead. You finish your thought.
well, I was going to say that, I don't think Caddo Parish still does it now, but up until at least 5 or 6 years ago, you could, if you could get a parish concealed carry permit. And so, for instance, living in Bossier, you could have the Bossier concealed permit. Then you could go to Caddo in the courthouse. Took 25 minutes. Boom, you got your concealed carry permit for Caddo Parish only. Didn't
Right.
carry across the state. So a lot of people don't realize all that when they get into this discussion about blood in the streets and all that.
Yeah, and it is very confusing because it really is. It is bureaucracy at its finest, in that you go to one side of the river and get this permit. You go to the other side of the river and get this permit. Oh, but that doesn't allow you to carry in the state. Oh, so now you got to get a state permit. I mean, it's just really confusing. And of course, California's, having patrol there, they had obviously some of the most stringent, gun and carry and cars and so forth laws that there were, as far as separation ammo. You couldn't have it even close or within reasonable reach, kind of thing. So I think I'd like people, and I would just say this: I do not get a firearm, unless you get some training. And if
Right.
you're going to carry, by all means, get some training, regardless if it's mandatory or not, or regardless of what your situation is. You owe it to yourself to practice and be familiar with that weapon, so you don't have any accidents. And so when you do pull it, you mean business, because you don't get a second chance to call back the bullet once it's gone.
Oh yeah, we agree 100% on that. Even though I'm an absolutist with it, I agree everybody should get real training. A concealed carry class is not training, by the way. So anyway, okay. Well, I appreciate your answer to that.
No, thank you. Thank
I
you.
rattle that to everybody.
Well, Well, Jim, I've got one for you. You know, checking those boxes going along here. If you were mayor of Shreveport and a proposal came along, I'm just wondering if you would be in support of this. And the proposal would be if it came along to make Shreveport a an abortion sanctuary city, would you be in favor of something like that?
I'm not in favor of sanctuary cities at all. And I've said that if we were ever considering being a sanctuary city for anything illegal, and now I'm a right to life guy. I don't believe in abortion. Obviously, I've changed views back and forth and so forth. But I was born Roman Catholic, and of course that was a thing that there was a firm a belief in that. But no, I would not be a sanctuary city because, and quite frankly, um, I'm a firm believer that conception is the beginning of life, and God knows you before you were even born. I mean, it's biblical. I knew you before, and I have to always remind myself of that. There may be extenuating circumstances that um, I'm not prepared to go into because they are extenuating, and I'm not the one that makes that decision. But as for me, I have to be go back to my roots and what I believe and my core values, and that I truly believe that God knew us before we were ever conceived, and knew everything about us from the time that He's decided to give us life, and at the time that He's decided to call us home. And so, if that makes me kind of odd, then it does. But as I tell people, I says, if you have an issue, with the Bible, you just got to take it up with the author, and it's not Jim Taliaferro. But no, no sanctuary cities for me. No sanctuary cities regarding immigrants. I believe in securing our borders, and I think I'm glad that you brought this up because I believe that when someone runs for any political office, you have the right, I should say, the right to ask them what their views are on other sensitive issues, such as border security, such as abortion, such as Second Amendment, whatever it is, because that really kind of tells you the true person that you're dealing with, or the person that you're dealing with, and their core values. And I think that's important for voters to know how you stand on national issues, because as a security forces member with the United States Air Force, you know, uh, border security is a big deal for me, both overseas in the desert and back here on home soil. And I'm a firm believer in protecting my country. And I don't, I'm not going to do anything to um, jeopardize the safety of not just Shreveport, but my nation as a whole.
Good answer and fair point. All right, so let me scan. I'm going to scan through the questions here, and
Sure.
it's kind of a segue because we've gone from gun rights to sanctuary cities and that sort of thing. So it's not really an elephant in the room at all. The big thing in Shreveport is crime, and
Hmm.
here's what I would remind some of the folks that are watching that may not be aware that really in most of the crime stats, Shreveport is technically safer than Bossier. Per capita, the problem
Per
seems to
capita.
be the problem seems to be that pesky murder rate over there. And I'm
Hmm.
not trying to make light of it, but it is what it is. And so I think we want to kind of maybe get into that. We got a comment here from Jonathan. Jonathan says criminal justice system and DA's office is a big
Hmm.
factor in the crime levels in Shreveport. So, leading off of that comment, I noticed on your website where you got your plan listed. Of course, you
Hmm.
mentioned the crime. Can't get away from that. So, what is, and I'm going to say specifically, your plan for helping to reduce or do something or turn the tide of this murder and crime wave that seems to be going on in Shreveport? How do we
Well,
deal
let's
with this?
yeah. And that is a $64,000 question. It's something that is on everybody's mind. Crime is the number one thing because it threatens our safety and security. Um, there's a few things, and I can go into a lot of it, but let's start off with the Shreveport. I mean, let's start off with the police department. The mayor obviously is not to blame for high crime rate. The mayor is not to blame for the number of homicides, nor is the police department. The number of homicides is an issue that is beyond the scope of law enforcement. And a lot of people going, well, it's your job to protect us. Yes, it is. But you and I, all three of us, can be sitting around the table, and two of you are cops and I am not. And if I want to shoot someone in close proximity, there is nothing you're going to be able to do to stop me. You cannot legislate. You cannot do anything to, I say, legislate the evil in a man's heart. If I'm going to be a criminal, I'm going to be a criminal. If I'm going to use violence, I'm going to use violence. So first and foremost, we have to give our unwavering confidence and our unwavering support of police officers, and trust in their capabilities that they were trained to do a specific job. It is law enforcement. And yes, there's a preventative component. But that's why I don't get too into the weeds on the homicides, because typically a majority of your homicides, as they say, you've heard this, it's relational. Someone knew somebody. There's something connecting these people, whether it's socially, whether it's at work, whatever it is, there's something that connects them. And it is difficult to ask law enforcement to figure this thing out. This is a job for psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, pastors. This is something beyond the scope of law enforcement. We can do everything we can to ensure public safety. In other words, if we have a burglary issue, then we set up metrics to deal with the burglaries. If we have robbery issues, as you know, during Christmas we have high robberies. Back when I was on, we used to hide in the coolers of the 7-Eleven, kind of thing. So we can be preventative on some crimes, but the homicide issue is just something that, unless it is something where it is a serial killer and has a motive that we can actually track, that we actually deal with, not this random shooting, then it is unfair for us as a society to say it's all law enforcement's fault. You need to do something about it. Now, what can a mayor do? A mayor can lobby. You need to use the bully pulpit that you have, the voice to be the voice of you, the citizen. You need to lobby the DA for certainty and severity of punishment, and put restitution in there for every crime committed. I'm a broken windows theory guy. Is that it doesn't matter what the crime is, you have to have punishment associated with that crime, or committing the crime means nothing to the person perpetrating the crime. Obviously, we need to decrease blight, because we know that, with the landowners out here that just let their property run down, and it's a haven for drug use, weapons stores. And by weapons stores, what I mean is you have a vacant building. Oftentimes, criminals will set up shop in a vacant building and deal weapons out of that building. You kind of go in, rent a weapon, and so forth, and that happens. So, you need to be, using the bully pulpit. You need to lobby and work with law enforcement to. They had a program called Project Safe Neighborhoods, which actually was geared to taking felons off the street who are in possession of firearms. That was a 10-year sentence. And now with the Justice Reinvestment Act, is that you go in for, let's just say you go in for 15 years and they knock 35% off of that, and then they knock another 50% or whatever the percentage is, and pretty soon, you're doing time served and you're out, in a couple of years. There are a lot of things that we need to do, and as the mayor, you need to be the lobby. You need to lobby the chief of police to rebuild your volunteer auxiliary force. You need to lobby the school board. I'm a firm believer in keeping kids off the street and give them purpose and give them vision, because not every child is going to college. I didn't go to college. I went into the military, and that's where I got my, school of hard knocks, as you say. But the point is that we need to kind of save our youth, but give them a skill, give them a trade. I grew up when we had shop in high school. Some of us, we knew we're not going to college, and if we didn't go in the military, we had a skill, whether it's woodworking, whether it's metal, sheet metal, whether it's automotive, we had a skill. Refrigeration, it didn't really matter. So there are a lot of things that the mayor can do, and my job is to use that bully pulpit, to be the voice of the citizens. Help them find their voice as well.
Let me lead off of that, because you bring up several really good points, and you brought up something that I've heard very few people mention, but I've mentioned many times, and you basically alluded to it, is that this is a generational thing. And so the problem is that it's taken a couple of generations to build up this, for lack of a better term, negative attitude in Shreveport. And so then the question is, well, how long is it going to take to fix this? Let's say that you had a magic wand. Let's say you got elected and you had a magic wand, and you could wave that magic wand to fix these, and again, I'll just say core problems. How long is it going to, or how long do you think it's going to take for this crime wave or this murder wave, if this really is that, how long is it going to take to turn this ship around? It's taken years and years and decades to get it to this point. How do you turn it around? How long will it take?
Well, I don't know, and people probably get tired of me saying this, but I know what I don't know. But I can tell you that in 1990, when I was on 1991, 92, Steve Prater was the chief of police, and we had a huge gang problem. We had a huge gang problem because in 1989, even probably a little before that, we had the blinders on. We refused to say we had a gang problem because we couldn't understand why little old Shreveport has a connection with Los Angeles, California. And that's because, interesting enough, it's not necessarily the freeway system, although that helps. But if you ask people in Shreveport at that time, most people that you asked in that specific arena of crime had connections, relatives in California. So there was a natural connection there that we never thought about. Now let me go on with the enforcement aspect of it. No one agency can tackle a big crime issue like the Bottoms Boys, the Crips, the Bloods, the Pyrus, whatever it may be, back in the 90, 91, 92 era. But what was significant about that was that everyone within the judicial process actually got together and decided that enough is enough and that we needed each other's help. Now, that was the sheriff, the police department, probation and parole, the marshal's office, the United States Marshal's office, the DA's office, and then the court system. And then not only the court system, but the prison system, the Department of Corrections. So what we actually did, and I was just a part, I was just a part that I played, is that everybody got together and we all agreed that enough's enough. We're going to fast track these people into prison where they belong and get them off the street. So that's where the massive sweeps came in. That's where Project Thor came in. That's where a lot of the rounding up, if you will, in the bottoms, the cleaning up of Queensboro, the cleaning up of Moortown, and so forth. It's because we were all working together because we knew that just one agency is just too big. Now, what that did, again, it built up confidence. It showed the would-be criminals that we don't play. Something that Bossier had started their reputation way back when, and they ride on that reputation today. But the whole thing is that we had respect, not because we were law enforcement, but because we took our oath to protect our citizens with everything that we had. And I think that's a big deal. So going back to the mayor, is that you have to be very supportive of your chief of police, whomever that may be, because people look at who supports who. And then the chief of police getting the support from the mayor saying, we're going to make mistakes. And we know that policing doesn't look good on YouTube. It never has, it never will. But we have the trust in the ability of our officers to make split-second life and death decisions. And if it turns out sour, we'll deal with it then. But the last thing I want as a mayor, and the last thing I want as a chief of police, is for an officer to put on his vest in the morning or the evening or leave his family and wonder, gosh, if I pull the trigger, am I going to get sued? Is my life over? That's the last thing that I want you to think about as an officer, because that takes a split second to think about it, and that takes a split second for you not to come home. And I refuse as a mayor, I refuse as a chief of police to have my officers, our officers, your officers think that way. We need to let them know every doggone day that go out there and do your job. Do the job that we hire you to do. Protect us, whatever it takes, as long as you don't violate someone's rights. You violate someone's rights, and we get that. You're going to be held accountable. But there's so many ways that we can do policing, proactive policing, shut down the criminal element. Just about every criminal drives. Step up your vehicle enforcement. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a taillight, whether it's a rear view mirror, whether it's whatever it is, it puts that person at a certain place at a certain time in the event that a crime has occurred. I mean, I can go on and on because that's all law enforcement stuff, which I'm very passionate about. But the most important thing I'm passionate about is people below the rank of chief of police and below the rank of mayor need to see that they're supported, because it's a dirty job and it's an unsafe job in many occasions. And they need to know that, hey, I don't get to go violate anybody's civil rights, but I can go out and I can do what I was hired to do, and that's police.
Well, and I'll kind of wrap up my part of the enforcement part. You hit on a good point. I've got, well, they're not teenagers now, but when my boys were teens, they used to go over to Stoner Park all the time. And it was a drag strip down there.
Sure.
And I think I've told this story before, so I'll make it real brief. But anyway, my wife and I, we would track their phones and go down to Stoner and just go see what they were up to, And Dad, my boy's like, no, Dad, you don't understand. The police allow us to come down here and do this. If you go talk to that guy in that car right there, he's an undercover detective. Here's his name. Go talk. And so I did. And sure enough, he was an undercover detective, and basically his job was to make sure that they didn't kill each other. They figured the thinking then was, well, at least if they're down here, we can keep an eye on them, a certain segment of kids. And you brought up one other point, that fearing the police as far as Bossier City. That was another thing that a lot of those kids down there, when we were down there talking to them, said was, look, we're not going to Bossier and do this, because they're going to come kick our rear ends and arrest us first and ask questions later. Those kids basically, and again, they weren't, they were down there drag racing and doing stuff or whatever, but their attitude was, unfortunately, that the Shreveport police, I hate to say this live, but it is what it is, they were more like mall cops. And so I think that's an important component. I mean, look, and I'm all for calling out law enforcement if, as you said, law enforcement violates somebody's rights, and we've seen that over and over and over too.
Yeah.
But
there's no excuse for that.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, there's got to be a healthy respect and realize that the word force is in enforcement. It's law enforcement. So I think that is a good component. But from there, we probably need to segue. Duke, I'm sure you probably got some questions and want me to hush for a second.
Well, let me make one thing clear is that obviously I'm not advocating for any abuse of anything.
Right.
And keep in mind that when we were growing up, it was learned respect. I'm not asking you to respect me because I have a badge.
Right.
I'm asking you to respect the authority which the badge has. And that comes from learning from my parents. My parents taught me discipline. My parents taught me respect for every adult. And you can remember this, I'm sure, is that your neighbor had every right to discipline you
Oh, yeah.
as your parents did, back in the day.
Absolutely.
If they saw you doing something that you weren't supposed to do, they had every right to go out and call you out on it and wrangle you in and drop you off on the doorstep saying, hey, Jim was in someplace he shouldn't have been. It was everybody was looking out for everybody else's child. And unfortunately, we don't, we have these national movements, that want to defund the police department, that, we lump everybody into one big basket and they were just all no good. Because we know that that is definitely not true. But again,
Right.
I just want to make sure that I'm all for law enforcement because the rule of law is very important. And if you don't have laws, then you have anarchy. And
Hmm.
we've all seen in the past 2 years or so, what anarchy really looks like.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, and I didn't want to continue to beat this horse, but it is the most important thing. It goes to our show Tuesday night, and you're going to say, well, like, how can you talk about something that goes on in a school and how it relates to law enforcement? Well, it's a perfect comparison because the subject matter on Tuesday night show was about a teacher, a substitute teacher, that was let go from her responsibilities in a classroom because, as the cheerleader for the Bossier Parish school system articulated, that the substitute teacher made the students who were acting unruly to get control of the class do calisthenics and enforce some discipline. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't know all of the details, but when we all went to school, we talked about this when we all went to school. If we didn't take a trip to the principal's office and get that 2 foot long paddle across our rear and felt discipline, we dang sure felt it when we got home.
Mm-hmm.
And that simple thing, it equates to law enforcement. Maybe not so much that we need you know, law enforcement officers inflicting discipline. That's not what I'm saying. But the fear of that discipline or the fear of, and statistics bear it out. You just talked about, you know, this movement to defund police and I'm just going to say it the way it is, this new woke society.
Mm-hmm.
Statistics bear out that that model doesn't work because the FBI just put out some recent statistics that reflect, and Rex, I sent the link to you the other day and we haven't had time to completely go over them, but what it bore out was that there is an increase in murders as a result, of the defund the police movement. And disproportionately in the black communities, they've experienced more homicides and more murders in their communities where they saw those decreases. And I don't know. I hope people give some credence to those statistics. And I think boots on the ground makes a difference. I truly believe it.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. Is the COP, the constables on patrol. There were studies, way back. One of the things that really messed up the police profession is when we put cops in cars because it distance ourselves from our public, and so we have to work extra hard to maintain that contact that we took for granted when we pounded the streets literally and walked from store to store and got to know our neighbors and so forth and so on. But that's progress, and that's just the way it is. So when I was a field training officer on the Shreveport Police Department, one of the things I always used to tell my partners is that I don't care if it's cold outside, you have a heater. I don't care if it's hot outside, you have an air conditioner. I want that window down unless you're on the freeway or something like that, because you have to maintain that contact. And one of the things that I learned when patrolling is that you got people slinging dope on a corner. You got your window down and you look straight at them and you even point at them. They know you see them, and so you're not oblivious, and you need to let them know that you're not oblivious to the activity that's going on. And sooner or later, it's going to come a reckoning, so to speak. When they break the law and you're there to enforce it.
Well, let me segue from that straight into this. So we talked about the generational thing, and then we talked about some of the crime situations in Shreveport, and we talked about the schools and alluded to all of that. So, as mayor, how do you reach out to these families that need whatever the definition of discipline is, or help with these kids that a lot of times come from broken families? And look, the truth is, it doesn't matter whether it's white, black, pink, purple, that come from these broken families and things like that. How, as mayor, I think you had listed on your website or your Facebook page that increasing mentoring and things like that, but
Sure.
what do you do to help solve that as the leader of a town that's got those issues?
That is a juvenile justice issue. That is a psychological issue. That is a youth services issue. As a mayor, again, I don't have the skill set to solve those issues. All I can do is be supportive of the people who do. And I think it's, just because you're the mayor or just because you hold a specific position doesn't mean that you have all the answers. Obviously, this is a big learning experience for a lot of people, except those who have been dealing with it for decades. Again, I don't pretend to have all the answers to that specific question on, what do you do to rescue? What do you do to save? What do you do to prevent our kids who are, if you really believe it, that they're our future generation or Shreveport's future, then we must find an alternative to them roaming the streets, having a lack of self-esteem, gravitating to gang-related activity, and a variety of things. That's why if you give a person, regardless of age, if you give a person the dignity of work and show them that they can be productive, and then you make sure that they are connected with people who genuinely care and genuinely can mentor and genuinely can guide and give the youth purpose and give them vision to say, my life is not as messed up as I thought it was, that people actually care about me and care about my future. This is it sounds like it's a pie in the sky, but it really isn't. It's just a matter of putting things together to make it work. And as the mayor, my job is to lend my support. And if it requires funding, that's a city council issue. But to do whatever we can to ensure that we get the best and the brightest and the most energetic trained workforce, because a lot of these kids are not going to college. Again, some of them are not going back to high school. So let's see what we can do to give them purpose and to show them that their life has meaning, because God didn't place them down here, just to waste it away. And God didn't place us down here just to let them waste it away. We don't get anywhere on our own. And when I hear someone saying, oh, he's a self-made man or she's a self-made woman, there is no such thing in my opinion, because we all rely on each other, for our successes. And if we fail, if we have a misstep, whatever it's called, there's usually somebody there that cares, that picks us up. And so, my role as the mayor is to be, I call it the CEO, really the chief encouragement officer, because at times you can just say, look, I get it. I'm behind you. Tell me how I can help. What resources do you need? Who do I need to use my bully pulpit to lobby to get the resources that you believe you need? And, we'll press on.
All right. So, again, you're doing great segues here. So you mentioned working with the city council, and also mentioned jobs and all that. So a couple of questions. One,
Yeah.
I notice on your website that you're advocating for I think it's the manager council style of government.
I am.
So maybe here in just a second, expand on that. And then also, how, as mayor or city manager, I'm assuming you're talking about the mayor actually evolving into the city manager at some point, if that proposal goes
Not,
through.
no, not it.
Okay.
It's the way we are governed. Let's just leave it at that, and I can explain further.
Okay. But how does that, whether it's the current form or whatever future form of government,
Mhm. Yeah.
how do you actually attract businesses to Shreveport? I mean, you got the Amazon warehouse going, and
Mhm.
there's been all kinds of rumors swirling around, whether it's going to be finished or whether they're going to hire people or whatever's going
Sure.
on. How do you continue to try to pull in those businesses and things like that to provide these jobs that you were just talking about to bring up people's self worth and change this generational thing that, in my opinion, that's going on. That's the root of the problem. How
Mhm.
does the mayor and the work with the city council, especially as a Republican,
Mhm.
uh, with I think it's probably a majority Democrat city council. How do you
Yep,
overcome
I
that
do.
that obstacle?
Mhm. The first thing that comes to my mind is that we we make things so difficult at times being in government. We make things so difficult when we have our own agendas. You have to check your egos at the door. And this is city council, this is commission. We should be looking at doing the best for our constituents as we possibly can. And I understand that, every person believes that they are. But let's talk about economic development. Let's talk about our prosperity. You ask me, what do you do to attract new business? Let's First of all, let's go back a step. And what do we do to keep the businesses that are here? What do we do to keep the current businesses, or to help the current businesses develop or to grow? What do we do to attract entrepreneurs that want to start a business? And one of those things is we make it as business friendly as we can. Our customer service profile, our customer service system needs a big overhaul. We need to make sure that people who want to do business in Shreveport get fast track into business, which means we cut red tape. We streamline the new business application process. If necessary, we assign a liaison to walk a business through every step, and we don't give them miles and miles or stacks and stacks of paperwork, only to be brought back and brought back. When you come to my window as a budding entrepreneur, and I'm in charge of permits, or I'm in charge of licenses, or whatever I'm in charge of that allows you to get into business, the one thing as a prospective business owner I expect to hear and almost demand to hear is, welcome to Shreveport. I am happy that you're here in my window. We're happy that you're doing business in our city. That's the first things that I want to hear. Welcome me, give me worth, show me that I have value, and then you show me how you're going to help me get in, business as soon as I can. So economic development to thrive, for us to grow, hinges on a variety of things. And everyone that has a say so or a responsibility in these components needs to pay close attention, because economic development will not happen if I have a high crime rate. Economic development will not happen if I don't have a trained workforce. There are so many things that you say, oh, well, how are you going to attract new businesses? The first thing is we have to lower our crime rate. The first thing is we have to clean up our city. Oh, that's the second thing. Sorry, but there's so many things that we should be doing. Our curb appeal leaves less to be desired than I care to admit. I said there is no reason that our freeway should not be marked so people could actually see where they're going, what freeway they're on. There's no reason for trash to be on the on ramps and the off ramps of our highway system. There's no reason for grass not to be cut. There's no reason for the edge of the grass to grow over our sidewalks. These things are easily fixed. There's six things that you, regardless of where you live, how much money you make, all you really want government to provide for you is fire and police, water and sewage, streets and drainage. And they need to be provided in a stellar manner. Now, if you do those 6 things, you'll create an environment that welcomes economic development. You'll create an environment that welcomes prosperity and that will generate prosperity. You'll welcome an environment that'll drop crime. There's a study that I read years ago when I was first running for mayor, is that, if you could put sidewalks in a majority of your neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks already, you'll lower your crime rate. And the reason that happens is because you draw people out of their homes. You put kids on the sidewalks riding bikes and tricycles. You bring neighbors out of their homes to meet their other neighbors. So it's a win-win proposition. I'm not saying that we could do that in every neighborhood, but it's sure worth worth looking into. That's just one of those things. But economic development hinges around so many other things. Training our workforce, like I said. I wasn't college material, or college wasn't right for me, or I wasn't right for college, whatever you want to say. But I got a skill set, and I chose to get it in the military. And then I went to school afterwards. But there are kids out there that just need a skill set. My daddy used to say that a man that can make your toilet flush will always have a job. And that is so true.
Very, very, very true.
Regardless of a toilet, or it's somebody that lays cement, or someone that fixes your roof or whatever, there is dignity in manual labor no matter what they tell you. Everybody says, oh, I'd want to work in an office. I want to be a blue collar worker, whatever, but give me white collar. Give me blue collar work any day of the week. And because there is a lot of dignity in it. And not that there isn't in white collar, don't get me wrong here. But the point is that we need to support our existing businesses, through tax incentives. We need to be engaged with growing businesses, being business friendly. I can go on and on. We need to have a competitive tax structure, which comes from the state. There are some things the city cannot do, but our attitude needs a big adjustment. As I've heard throughout my self-education, is you got to get rid of that stinking thinking, and we have to develop a can-do attitude, an attitude that says, how may I help you? And that's the culture we need to develop. And it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to have someone with the leadership and the will and the desire to say, we can and we deserve better. And, surround yourself with people a lot smarter and a lot more talented than yourself. And check your ego at the door, and you'd be surprised. As Harry S. Truman said, it's amazing what you could accomplish if you didn't care who got the credit.
Well, Jim, you kind of started hitting on it a little bit with what you were saying there. Um, being a commissioner, on the Caddo Commission, y'all
Yes, sir.
had a lot of things here recently pertaining to, the MPC and some
Yes, sir.
regulations being applied on folks out in the parish and all. And I want to get your comments on that. And
Sure.
I think where you were kind of heading, you didn't say it, but you were heading there. I think you were starting to articulate limited government ideals, is where kind of
Absolutely.
what you were saying. So, what where are we at on the issues pertaining to the MPC, as it applies to folks outside the city, and as mayor, what would you do about the
Well,
situation? Do we need to cut some heads over there, or what?
no, but the MPC is working quite well in the city of Shreveport. They perform a great function. Mr. Clark over there and his staff, they do what they need to do. This is the city. People have asked me, would you gut the MPC? Would you fire this person, fire that person? We're talking performance. We're talking results driven. That's what an administration needs to be focused on, which is the reason I'm a strong proponent of a city manager form of government. You have to be results. You have to be strategic in your accomplishments and what you expect to put on the tally board at the end of the day. As far as the MPC, we had a lot of constituents that were really treated unfairly, and that they were being that laws or rules, let's say rules, ordinances that typically pertain to the 5 mile buffer zone were being put on people in the parish And the reason that people choose a rural life is to get away from, let's just say, big government rules, regulations. Even though we do have zoning, within that 5 mile buffer, there were issues with other ordinances that were just, they did not apply. They tried to apply ordinances that were more focused on city dwellers, so to speak, than rural. And in that 5 mile buffer, it was rural. So, they, from anything from how many chickens I can have to where I can park my four-wheeler, to I have to have shrubbery around my business or whatever. I can't operate a business out of my house, or there's a variety of things they were just not fair to the rural residents, and that's what we had the heartburn over. Now, outside the parish, outside the 5 mile in the parish, if you own land, it's your land, and no government entity is going to tell you what you can do with your land as long as it's not illegal. If you're running a clandestine lab, with narcotics and so forth, then we got issues. But other than that, this is what it means to be an American and to own a piece of land, and to be able to use it however you see fit. There are laws, there are zoning, there are ways to protect a homeowner from another person coming in and putting in a junkyard or putting in something that is not desirable to that specific tract of land or that specific area. But the MPC is dealing with a lot of the stuff inside the city. As long as the city is happy with the performance of the MPC, then so be it. Again, I'm all about. I don't intend to move in and start whacking. That's not what leaders do. Leaders evaluate. Leaders sit back and they watch what works, what doesn't work. Where's the duplication of effort? Are we performance driven? Are we results driven? And so you have to look at a totality of things. And quite frankly, you have to focus on the people doing the job, because oftentimes they get hired to do a job. And if you handcuff them, if you don't allow them to do their job, we're getting back to kind of police. Is that how unfair is it for you to come in and say, you're not doing your job, you got to go? Well, have I been set up for failure as an employee? The fair thing to do is say, have you been hampered? Have you been told to back off? Have you been told to pull back? Are you being allowed to utilize every resource that we have to ensure your success and the success of your job? If that's not the case, then shame on us. Then you deserve another chance. You deserve an opportunity. If it's a duplication of effort, in other words, we're hiring 3 people to do one job, I am going to look for every available opportunity to utilize that person's talent somewhere else before I even let them go.
Interesting. Let's switch gears for a second.
Yeah, sure.
And so we've got a comment here. It's kind of long, again, from Greg Bailey, commented earlier, so I'm not going to put the whole thing on the screen, but Greg says, can he address driving I-20 through Shreveport and all the trash along the highway, to include the off-ramps and all that? Realize lots of that is the Louisiana DOTD, but that first impression for anyone gives an irreparable first impression. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, yep. What can the mayor do, and city administration, to address that?
Yeah. Here we go again. The mayor has a powerful voice. You must exercise that bully pulpit that you have been given by the citizens that put you in office. You need to call the people who are responsible for performing services on the carpet. I do not like driving down. Oh, let me give you an example. I have friends that have family come in and they're coming in landing at regional airport. And they said, Jim, you know that we have to plan our route to get our family from the airport to our home, so they don't see the garbage, the crap, the litter in Shreveport. That's sad. That's sad that citizens have to actually plan the route so people who are visiting our city don't see what our city looks like. Now, what are you going to do about it? You got to call people on the carpet. You got to call the DOTD. And if the DOTD can't get out here, then we need to do it ourselves. We need to find the resources. We had street sweepers at one time. Shreveport Green has a plan. I guarantee you they have a plan to exercise or to implement street sweepers in major intersections, major areas of the city. But we don't have any. If we have a litter problem on the freeways, on the on or off ramps, wherever it is, where's our street sweepers? Where are they? Why has it never been in a budget? If litter is such a big deal, and it has been for quite some time, do you hear anybody talking about street sweepers? No, you don't.
Well, and look,
You'd be hard pressed. So I think the thing is that look, if the DOTD don't want to handle it, or that takes months to get around to, we need to do it ourselves. Find a way to do it. Hire somebody, and then we send them the bill.
look, I got a suggestion
They
here.
can pay it, they cannot, but then we take legislation, we sue them, whatever it takes. But the point is that you have to stop kicking this, literally kicking this can down the road and say, we're not going to take this any longer, because we as Shreveport deserve to be recognized. We as Shreveport have worth. We as Shreveport have value. And if the state doesn't care, then our citizens need to step up, and they need to start firing off emails, calling their representatives, calling their senators, calling their whatever it takes. But the voice is the biggest thing that we can do.
Well, I want to see if you're open to this. So if you're elected mayor, I don't know how much you watched our Bossier Watch show, but we stay on Mayor Tommy Chandler quite a bit over here for some shenanigans. But where I give him credit, and we did on the show, was he actually has been instrumental in getting some of the street sweepers going and picking up trash and all that. So would you be willing to have a head-to-head, if you're elected mayor, a head-to-head competition?
Sure.
We'll start at the city limit dividing line, wherever it is on the bridge over the river, and head-to-head competition.
You talking about the linear Jimmy Davis Bridge, Rex?
Oh, no, we won't even get off on that deal right now. I'm just talking about the I-20 bridge. And you're going to travel west, and Tommy and his crew are going to travel east, and let's see who can get it cleaned up the fastest on each side. I'm thinking head-to-head, we get television crews in the whole 9 yards. Are you open to something like that?
Whatever it takes. But the bottom line is motivation. What we do have is we have a lack of motivation.
Right. I agree.
The thing is always somebody else's problem. I got pictures on my phone of grass over the curb. I have pictures on my phone of cigarette butts at the intersections, and you just want to say, "Come on, Shreveport, come on, Bossier, or whomever," and you don't grow up. You don't grow up as a child learning. Just littering. It's a learned behavior, and we have to start telling our children, showing our kids that this is not acceptable. You talked about a cultural thing. I was behind a gal yesterday. I still got her license tag number. The point is, she's in a white vehicle and throws a brown paper bag out the window, bigger than life.
Yeah, our good friend David.
Why do you do that? Because that's a learned behavior.
Our good friend David Jones has a comment. He said federal highway. He called Mike Johnson's office to ask about replacing the light bulbs on I-20 to 220 to 20. The route to the airport is dark. The bridge is dark. Never got a response. And we've heard Erin McCarty on Keel. That's one of her big things. But my thinking is, and you may or may not want to answer this as a mayoral candidate, but if it's a federal highway and it's a federal responsibility and they're not taking care of it, or the DOTDs, and you just decided to heck with it as mayor and took the street sweepers and a crew out there and started cleaning it up, are they going to send the state police to arrest you?
No, because this is the pointing the fingers thing. And I get it. It's like, well, it's their responsibility. Yes, it is their responsibility. And there is a time and a place when you hold people accountable. But we know how government works. And you can either stare at it and moan and groan about it, or you can actually do something about it and then deal with it afterwards. In the military, there are orders that you follow, and you really very seldom have the right to disobey an order. The way you do that is I follow it, and then I rebuttal. I follow it, as long as it's not putting someone else in jeopardy, myself or something else. But I follow the order as much as I don't like it, and then I take it up to a higher authority. We have to get over that it's someone else's job. I mean, I've had people throw stuff on the ground saying it's job security for somebody else.
Wow.
What kind of attitude is that? But we
Yeah.
have to get back to, we have to believe that we deserve better. And it's just not going to magically clean itself up. But there are resources. How much money do we spend on things that are really not that important? That we could be spending on leasing or buying street sweepers. And I mean, when growing up in Shreveport, we had street sweepers. We saw them up and down the street all the time.
Right.
At what point did they leave? At what point did we realize cleanliness is not that important any longer? When I go over to Dallas, when I go to big cities like Atlanta and so forth, and I drive their freeways, one of the things I love the most, going to Oklahoma, Arkansas, I like to see my freeways marked. I like to see I-30, I-45, I-20, I-10, whatever it is, bright, blue, red, white. I like to see my lanes. It gives you a crisp feeling. So I called DOTD. I says, when are you all going to do projects up here? I need specific dates, and I'll keep calling and then keep calling. The thing about it is the loud voice always will get results. The point is that are we willing to exercise our voice? I am, because you elect me to be your voice, and I expect you to find your own voice and do the same.
That is a great segue to this. And I heard this morning Robert Wright. Aaron was out, and Robert, they were having a really good conversation. I forget who it was on with him, and was talking about how they believe that Shreveport right now is at a crossroads, and crossroads, a turning point. And I think legitimately it is at a turning point. And I ask you, I think this next mayor's race and your council races are, and I think that's what they were alluding to, is going to define which way Shreveport goes, and it's either going to go in a good way or a bad way. But I think there's a third way that they didn't talk about. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. You know, there's these rumblings and these rumors that depending on which way Shreveport goes, you could have the city split. That there's a lot of people in the southern part of the city that are disenchanted
Mm-hmm.
with the direction that things going. Is that a legitimate possibility? Is that a legitimate movement? I mean, you're on the ground in Shreveport. You have the pulse over there. I'm wondering, is that legitimate?
I think it's legitimate. I think you're talking about South Shreveport in that they have the resources already. They have fire. They have police. The biggest thing that they deal with is water. But they have power. They have everything to be self-sustainable, if you will. And yeah, there's rumblings that there's a lot of concern about, or a lot of support for annexation. So it kind of circles around to why. Why would someone want to be annexed? Because they're not getting the basic services that they believe government should provide. And so you have every right as a citizen that if you're not getting what your government is supposed to provide, then you have every right to take it into your own hands. If you're not getting the protection that a government is supposed to provide for you, you have every right to take it in your own hands if you're threatened. Now, if you provide the fire and police, water and sewage, streets and drainage, the basic six services, I don't think you'll have this issue. I don't think so. I don't think you'll have people wanting to leave because they're getting their basic needs that government is supposed to provide for them. They're getting those met. They don't have problems. They're going to have problems, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to have the magnitude of disappointment that they have now. And you're not going to do everything right, but our customer service has to be stellar. It is very paramount that we give the best customer service we can to the citizens who are our employers. They're the employers, we're the employees. And when we forget that, then we don't belong in public service. So yes, there's rumblings about that, but I challenge those people who are thinking about it. And if you ask them, if you received stellar services and all those 6 things, would you even consider it? I venture to say no, because there's a reason people leave. There's a reason people, have pulled up roots and they go elsewhere. It's because they're in survival mode and they realize if someone won't look out for me, I got to look out for myself, because that's just the way it works. But again, fire and police, water and sewage, streets and drainage create a great opportunity, a great environment for businesses to grow, businesses to build, entrepreneurs to thrive, families to start. It just goes on and on. It goes back to economic development, prosperity. You lower the crime rate, economic development. You do things right, economic development. People will look at you going, man, what a great city. It's clean. It's relatively crime safe. You're not going to eliminate crime, but it's safe. It's within reason. And it's because, we do what we have to do. And we call those who are responsible for providing those services, we hold them accountable and make them responsible. And if they're not, then they need to be looking for another place of employment. I don't need people that want to have a job. I want people that are invested, that have pride of ownership in our city.
Well, and that gives me a good circle here. So I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit here. Let me see if I can find this, but not too much, since it's actually your ad. Let me see if I can get this going. You probably know where this is headed.
Look,
Let me see
I don't
if
mind
this
being
is
put on the spot, because I learn. Like I say, I always like surrounding myself with people who are a lot smarter than I am.
all right.
Definitely
So
a lot more talented.
all right, so I'm gonna play your I think it's about a 30-second ad that's running on your website right now. So you'll have to forgive me for copyright and all that sort of good stuff. But anyway, this is a amateur quasi sort of news deal. But anyway, so I'm gonna roll this ad, and I got a question for you when we come out of it. So here we go.
One homicide destroys a family. It shatters a child's world. There were 90 homicides in Shreveport last year, a new record. Mayor Perkins turned his back on the raging crisis when he ran for another office, a clear dereliction of duty. No more. One candidate has prepared for this moment. Jim Taliaferro, a crime stopper, a leader, a healer. One candidate, one chance to save Shreveport. Join the fight at jimformayor.com.
We don't want that. Let me get us back over here to the guest. Okay, so I'm not rolling that ad just as a plug for you as a candidate. There's a purpose behind it. So you're pretty much laying it out there that it's Perkins has a lot of the responsibility for what's going on. So who do you consider? Do you think Perkins has a real shot at re-election? I know obviously you want to win or whatever, but what do you think Perkins' chances are based on his history as mayor so far? What do you think his chances are of re-election?
I don't think they're very good at all, based on what I hear on the streets. And that's just not in the white community. It's in the black community. It's in the Asian community. What we have an issue here is a failure of leadership. I in no way blamed the mayor for the 90 homicides.
Right.
You won't hear that in that ad. What I do blame the mayor for, let me put this, what I do hold him accountable for is the fact that we were going through a crisis, and he is the chief. He's the executive officer of the city. And because of his personal wants, desires, whatever you want to call it, he wants to go run for another political office. I don't have an issue with him running for office.
Right.
But you got to finish your first tour of duty first. And I chose dereliction of duty specifically because we're both military-minded individuals. He gets that. I get it. You tell me that I'm derelict in my duty, I know what that means. I know the impact it has on me. And it makes me look, oh my gosh, what have I done? So not blaming him for the 90,
right,
but just calling him out. And I did this when I announced for mayor, and it was a while ago, but it was right after he decided he was going to run for run for Senate. After a year and a half, he said, I've done everything I came here to do, which is basically was telling you is that I've done everything I came here to do. I could better serve you as a senator than as your mayor. And it really ticked me off, so much so that I got my crew together and I says, he's got to know that this is unacceptable. This is our home. This is my home. I was born here. As I said, my legacy started in 1937. You don't take us off the shelf, use us like you want to use us, put us back on the shelf, and go about your merry way. Again, you can do whatever you want to do after you fulfill your tour of duty of 4 years. But you don't get to quit midstream, run for another office, spend all your time in Baton Rouge trying to gain name recognition while we're going through crap up here. I'm not saying he could have fixed it. That's not the issue. The issue is that you don't want the captain of a ship hiding below decks when you're going through a storm. It is a leadership by example. Where's the chief encouragement officer there?
True enough.
Wasn't. And that's my issue. As a military-minded guy, we are always taught you do not leave your people behind. And I think that's what he tried to do. And then when it didn't work out for him, for whatever reason, and there are multiple theories, when it didn't work out for him, then he says, maybe being the mayor is not so bad. Well, too late. So chances of re-election, I'm going to say, are none. I don't believe he has the support. He surely doesn't have the support of the people in the conservative arena who gave him plenty of money, only to be, I would say, ignored, by their words, not mine, ignored. And I don't think he's going to get a second chance. Everybody knows, the first 7-8 months were integrity issue after another. I mean, it started before he even raised his right hand to assume the office. We were going through the insurance issue, but it's just been one thing after another. That is no way to start an administration. I don't know why, and I don't care at this point. The bottom line is, you kind of abandoned us. You did. You tried to. So no, I don't think his chances are very good at all. Which is again one of the reasons I said, look, he's got to know that regardless of who else gets in the race, I'm coming after him in 2022, and I promised him I would, and here I am.
Well, I think we'll kind of pick that as a wrapping up point. We're at almost an hour and a half total time, and we're running between 30 and 40 folks. We had a few more than that earlier. So, Duke, you got any final comments? Or
I've got one more thing, and we're going to let Jim get out of here. We have beat him enough, or as some of our friends say, abused his time. So, Jim, Rex and I have been kicking around something, and we've got somebody that we did something in the past with, another organization from over in Shreveport that we partnered with, and kind of been kicking this around a little bit. And while we got you here, we just wanted to ask, I think I already know your answer, but just to go through the formalities, we did a Bessie debate, and it really went well. And, the format was good. It wasn't, the candidates had a little bit of combativeness in that race, but we also did like even a Bossier City Council debate and used the exact same format. It really went well. We've had some people ask us if we would be willing to do that in the Shreveport mayor's race. It's looking like there's going to be a lot of folks throwing their hat in the ring, but I just got to ask, if we put that together, would you be willing to, participate?
Absolutely. During the last mayoral race, I think we did 19 forums. 19. Everybody wanted a little piece of the action there, with the candidates, and rightfully so. the more that we can get our message out, regardless of what message it is, the better it is. I want our people to be informed. When we ran the last time, all I really wanted you as a citizen to do is do your homework. Find out who Adrian Perkins really is. Because I don't believe anybody wakes up one morning and decides to come home and be the mayor. I just don't. That's Jim Taliaferro speaking and nobody else. But yeah, you got to do your homework, regardless if it's me or regardless if it's any other candidate. Just do your homework. I want you to be informed. I don't want to tell you how to vote. I want you to vote. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I do. Obviously, I hope you vote for me. But the point is that I want you to be looking at leadership. And I really want you to kind of take a hard look at where has Shreveport been and where are we going if we don't change the path that we're on. And again, you bring up, I can't let you go without, I am for a city manager form of government. Because if you look at cities to our west, whether it's Frisco, Tyler, Longview, Plano, they're blowing and going. And we have so many resources that they do not. Why in the aviation community here is suffering? Why do we have to have all of our aviation services, our pilots have to go to Mena, Arkansas, population 8,000, when we have a hub here of aviation with Barksdale? Trained, we just ship things out. We don't care. Well, we need to start caring. We need to get out of the businesses that we have no business in. Aviation is one of those.
Good point. All right. Well, yep. And just so everybody watching is aware, and any of the candidates that happen to watch this or whatever, we invite all the candidates on. I mean, if Adrian wants to come on, he's welcome on the show too. So, we want to make sure that our show and our interviews are fair for everybody. And if we do get to put on a debate or whatever, we'll be as fair and balanced as we can with that. So anyway, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Jim, and spending an hour and a half with us.
It's a privilege, gentlemen. Thank you so much for making the call. It was great. Anytime that I can, tell people or actually inform people, that there is a better way to do business. And we just need to start thinking about the better way to do business and start looking at leadership, start looking at customer service, start looking at why does Shreveport deserve to be the very best that we can be? Why do we deserve to be the top of every good list? And be the number one city in the state. No reason we can't. We've got to change our attitude. We have to redevelop why do we deserve it.
Agreed. All right, Luke, you want to wrap it up, and we'll let Jim go, and we'll finish up here in the next couple of minutes.
Jim, thank you for coming on, brother, and good luck in your campaign, and we will talk again.
All right, thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, brothers. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Well, I think I messed up.
Uh-oh. Why is that? Surely not.
I think I'm going to have to go back and watch. I think I asked him an abortion sanctuary city.
Yes.
I don't support an abortion. I did say that, did I?
It was something to that effect. My eyes were kind of glazed over. I saw somebody, I forget who it was, had the comment way up in the comments, and it was something to that effect. We'll have to go back and listen to the wording. I think most people kind of knew what you meant, however you said it.
Yeah, well, I don't support an abortion sanctuary. Say what? I don't support that. Anyway, I hope everybody, if everybody didn't understand what I meant, anyway.
Like you said earlier in the pre-show, it's a live show.
I know.
Once it's out there, it's there.
That's why I was sitting here. It's been bugging me ever since then. I'm like, okay, did I not? Well, I can't go back and watch it. What are we going to do? Stop? Hang on, wait a minute. Time out, everybody.
The rewind, that's not what I meant. Yeah. I think everybody pretty much got the gist of what you meant, and honestly, I can't remember exactly how you worded it either. Tim Euler, thank you, Tim. Tim says, we understood, so I think you're probably off the hook there, but anyway.
Well, good.
Well, I enjoyed the conversation. Jim seems to be a good guy. Obviously we agree on most things, if not maybe all of them, but I don't know. I wouldn't say all of them. He had a few things that I would respectfully not 100% agree, but he's not afraid to do an interview. We didn't prep him with any questions.
No, absolutely not. No fear there. I mean, there. I mean, how many horses are going to be in this race? There's going to be a bunch,
A
and
bunch.
I mean, man, there's no way there's not going to be a runoff. Um, I think people are going to be scratching for every vote they can get over there in that race. I mean, because that cut of that pie is going to be getting split a lot of ways, and I really would like to have Perkins on here because Jim said something. Did you hear what he said? That a lot of conservatives
Yes.
gave money to him.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know,
They
and
might
they're not
wish they
happy
could get a
or
refund.
I,
He didn't say
you know,
that, but that's, putting it in simple terms.
yeah, I really would like to kind of go on that a little further, and I would really like to hear from Perkins. I mean, if he had a, I'm scratching my head here. If a lot of conservatives were supporting Perkins, what did they think was going to happen?
Well, that's a good point. You can't really, you hear me say this all the time. You can't really blame Perkins. Well, I don't say that, but you can't really blame Perkins. It's the people that put him in office.
I mean, who are? Look, this goes back to us and the rabbit photo with John Bell Edwards, right?
Yeah, it's kind of, sort of similar, sort of.
But I'd love to get Perkins on. I mean,
Yeah,
really though, I think it would be interesting to have a chat with him. I've never spoke to him. I think it would be a pretty good little interview, and to understand why he feels the way he feels or what he believes. Because to be honest with you, I really don't know what his thoughts are.
Yeah. I mean, the
I'd
only
love to
thing
hear
I
it.
know, probably similar to you, the only thing I know is what we see in the mainstream media, around here, and that may or may not be fair. Who knows? Not that we're really worried about being totally fair, per se, but yeah, it would be interesting. So, yeah, all of them are welcome. So,
Yeah, David Jones. When wild monkeys fly out of my butt.
yeah, we got
Yeah,
to put that comment on the
and
screen.
and I'm gonna tell you right now. You know who the first person that's gonna be in line to take his roller skates and skate from one end of the Jimmy Davis Bridge to the other? It's gonna be David Jones.
He's probably even going to skate backwards.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, can y'all put some of those, early '80s funky disco music, and get the spinning lights? So this will be like going to Northgate skating rink.
Hey, I got an idea. Maybe we can petition the state or get one of our local reps or whatever to get that bridge named. Oh, it's already the Jimmy Davis Bridge. Dang. Well, maybe because it's going to be a linear bridge, they'll rename it the David Jones Bridge.
That I think you're on to something.
Photoshop and a picture of the bridge. Here we go. I got to make the honorary David Jones Bridge sign. All right. I'm ready to go get some dinner. I have not eaten dinner yet, and my wife was good enough, of course, to cook dinner this evening, and hopefully there's a plate left that the kids haven't eaten at all.
Well, thank y'all for watching, and till next time. Hey, Tuesday night Bossier Watch. Seriously, Jimmy Davis Bridge. It is happening. I mean, we have got commitments of somebody's going to take over it. I mean, and
Somebody's taking the reins of the Jimmy Davis Bridge.
one city has said, "Hey, we hammered out a deal. We got it done. We got it done. It's a done deal. Chalk it up."
That could be very, very interesting. That'll be a fun discussion.
Why is it bridges? I mean,
I don't know.
Bridge over Black Bayou. Now you got this bridge over, the railroad tracks, closing Shed Road down. I mean, it's all about bridges.
Yeah, bridges to nowhere, bridges everywhere.
Yeah, maybe we got to burn some down too while we're at it. Anyway,
Maybe so. All right, folks, we appreciate everybody watching as usual. If you got some information you want to share with us, you can send it to lawatch@protonmail.com or bossierwatch@protonmail.com. Make your free anonymous account. I really don't have a website for LouisianaWatch.org yet. We got the domain. You can go over to Bossier Watch and check it out if you want to donate us some coffee money so that we can drink coffee while walking over the David Jones honorary bridge, linear bridge when it's get finished. That would be great. But if not, hey, we're going to keep doing the show anyway, coffee money or not. We will be back Tuesday to talk about the bridge. And we may have that video that I promised ready to show. So we'll just have to see.
ooh, Don't want to miss that video. Good night, y'all.
See y'all later. Good night, dude.